I believe everyone does have to accept the recording. If not, I believe, I don't know, yes or no, something to that effect. But again, welcome everyone. I see Piper and I see someone else here on the iPhone. Welcome. You can change your name. So if you want to put your name so that I know who you are. But as a holistic coach, we do not only deal with illness, we deal with, anyone that is looking to either eat better, um, obtain more energy, or if someone is having, experiencing an illness, some type of health crisis. Um, but this part of the holistic part is dealing with our mind, because holistic health does not only deal with nutrition. um, we deal with the mind, the body, and the spirit. We deal with the whole person. So if you are, let's say, on a path of eating right, and maybe one of your goals is to lose weight, something to that effect, you know, there is this aspect that we're going to talk about today, with which is our emotions and our mindsets. So it's really important to be open-minded to the whole picture, and that's basically, what we're going to discuss today. Welcome, Nicole. So I'm going to get into a lot of the science behind it, and my reasons for that is because that's how I like to learn. And what that helps me to do is to understand the dynamics behind whatever it is that someone is telling me, that, oh, you need to do this, this, and that. So I need to understand the whys behind it. That helps me, and helps me to stay motivated, because this is not a quick fix type of thing. Holistic health is a lifestyle, it's a journey. It takes a lot of patience. And as we were discussing before we started, like, the recording, there's a lot of things that we're going to need to undo. A lot of belief systems, a lot of old patterns. We need to also unlearn a lot of things that we have been taught that we thought was true. um so that's basically it. So the science part of how our emotions and our mindset affect our body is, there is a new modern medical science called psychoneuroimmunology. So it's a growing field, and basically a study that blends behavioral science and neurological endoc let's see if I get these words right, endocrine and immune processes. And it explains how psychology and the physical body interact. So it's extremely interesting to me, as for me. But what they're doing is they're discovering how the brain communicates with the body through the autonomic nervous system. So we may have heard of the flight or fight system, which is actually the sympathetic system. And then we may have heard of the rest and digest system, which is called the parasympathetic system. Both systems are needed, but they need to be in balance. So a oh, there's a little bit of sound in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but so someone who is in a constant state of stress, their brain um, will create changes to the physical structure of their brain and lead to an increased immune function. So basically, if we are in a constant state of worry, anxiety, our immune system will become repressed. And what that basically means is that our immune system is not going to be able to fight infection, bacteria. It's not going to balance out our gut health. So that's one example. So another a fact is that when emotions are repressed, or denied or not allowed to be, our network pathways get blocked. And we can look at this as like a highway. Just think of like vehicles trying to get through the highway. If there's like a car accident, they're blocked, they can't go through. So this blocks our brain from communicating and telling our body what it needs to do. So therefore, expressed anger, fear, and even sadness are healthy. These are healthy things to be able to express. They're just as healthy as peace, joy, and courage. So repressing them is what sets up a weakened system. So I'm going to also share a few doctors that have worked in this field. I'm going to share what they have discovered, because again, I thrive, my learning thrives on information. So there's a Dr. Steven Sinatra, not related to Frank Sinatra, or at least not that I'm aware of. He's a board certified cardiologist and a certified psychotherapist who wrote a book called Heartbreak, Heart Disease. And he has over 40 years of clinically treating and preventing heart disease. And he has discovered that over 50% of all heart disease happens to people due to a hidden emotional factor. So again, I'm going to be sharing information that is going to really open up our minds and change a lot of things that we have believed, and help us to I believe that this information will also help increase our understanding, not only for ourselves but also for others. That's my prayer, that's what it does. So it's pretty incredible to hear that over 50% of people that have heart disease, they have some hidden, and when I say hidden, is like this unexpressed emotion, which is really, really sad to hear. So Dr. Bruce Lipton, he also wrote a book, and these doctors have written several books. These are just one book that I decided to notate. It was he wrote a book called Biology of Belief. And he is a cell biologist by training and a pioneer in alternative education and holistic publications. He states that humans can control gene activity and rewrite their genes by focusing on their beliefs. This concept is called epigenetics. So our genes are influenced by our environment. Examples are food, temperature, sleep, exercise, our moods, our age. And then there's a third doctor called Dr. Candace Pert. I mean, I encourage you guys to look these doctors up because they have done amazing work, especially Dr. Pert. She is a neuroscientist and a pharmacologist. So this is something new that I learned. She's not a pharmacist, she's a pharmacologist. She has published over 250 research articles and states that most psychologists treat the mind as a disembodied, a phenomenon with little or no connection to the physical body. Conversely, physicians treat the body with no regard to the mind or emotions. But the mind and body are not separate and cannot be treated one without the other. She wrote an excellent book called Molecules of Emotions. So again, I'm bringing in a lot of science, a lot of doctors that have studied this, because this is not, there's so much information out there, and we don't know what to believe. There's just so much. So I wanted to at least bring in this information from the doctors, before going in and breaking down a little more of how our emotions and mindsets affect our our physical body. So our brains are also designed in 3 layers, and there's a lot more with regard to the brain. I'm just touching on this aspect, but it's designed in 3 layers. The upper level, which is cognition, the cognition of the brain. This part is the part of reasoning and problem solving. Then we have the middle brain, which deals with emotions, and it's also attached to the limbic system. And then we have the lower brain. Our lower brain is responsible for respiration, heart rate, our body functions, such as blood pressure, and maintains 90 to 95% of behaviors. Well, 90 to 95% of behaviors are driven basically by this part of the brain, when in fact, the upper part of the brain, which is the cognitive part of the brain, should be responsible for our behaviors. So the lower part of the brain is also called, people refer to it as the subconscious. And if this part of the brain, if we, for example, if we are not okay, if we're not feeling well, we're not okay in a mental state, then the lower part of our brain suffers. And again, the lower part of the brain is responsible for respiration, heart rate functions. I'm going to go a little more into it. So I'll give you guys an example. If we are experiencing a life-threatening event, the lower part of our brain is what will send a response to our bodies to help us escape danger. It will provide energy to our muscles, endorphins. It will increase blood flow. This is what's called the flight or fight response. So when this state is triggered, our bodies cannot do much more. Which is incredible. It's amazing how, God designed our body to be able to handle a life-threatening situation. So again, when we are in that flight or fight state, again, our bodies cannot do anything else, such as cleaning up our cells, process food, which is digestion. So these are things that are done behind the scene. So unfortunately, most people, and I don't have statistics, but if we can stop for a second and think about maybe even 5 people in our lives, it could be someone at work, someone in our family, that we can think of, that we know that are constantly stressed. This is what's going on in their bodies. If they are living in a constant state of worry, anxiety, their bodies are not able to function properly. They're going to, the cells in our body, are not going to be able to function correctly. Our digestion is going to affect our stomachs. It's going to affect our cognitive skills, focus, ability to complete tasks, things like that. So this is why in the beginning I did mention that this may really trigger us, but I really hope that this will just open up our minds to our own personal experiences, but to also experience compassion for others that maybe that that are experiencing chronic stress. So now the lower part of our brain will also keep a memory of the precursors to a life-threatening event. So for example, I love this example. Let's say you're walking in the woods and you're feeling the air, the wind hitting your face, and you just happen to walk by some some type of greenery, some plants, and you smell the plants, and then all of a sudden a bear jumps out in front of you. The lower part of your brain again is going to keep the precursors, which mean the things that occurred before the bear jumped out: the wind blowing on your face, the smell of the little bushes. And what it basically does is it takes a snapshot of the event. And what happens is, well, for example, have you ever or experienced anxiety and you don't know why? You say to yourself, I have no idea why I'm anxious. I'm not stressing. I'm not thinking about the bills. I'm not. So there could have been a memory in the lower part of your brain that you are not aware of. Is It's deep down in our subconscious that triggered that flight or fight state. And your heart is racing and your blood is pumping because your body is preparing you to be able to deal with that event. Um, so another state other than anxiety and the anxiety is another state is called the freeze. This is also an automated response that is mostly related to early childhood trauma. So there could have been an event that occurred when we were children that we may not have a forefront memory of, but that is triggered, and it's the lower part of our brains will again prepare us for that traumatic event. So our brain, as children, is blank. When we are born, what we do is we learn, how to think, as we go through life and we see, situations play out. We learn what they mean. And then what our brain does is it creates a filter for us, which is called a mindset. So an example is, let's say you grew up watching or hearing your parents fight, argue, and it resulted in, let's say, violence, or it resulted in a better connection. This becomes an illustration of normal, whatever the result was. So this creates, again, an interpretation for new events and new experiences, in our lives. And what happens is normal for us, and let's go back to the pathways in our brain. Normal is critical for us to be able to survive, you know, and this is why most things outside of normal for us, outside of, let's say, our safety zone, or what we call our comfort zone, will send a really strong signal to our brain to watch out, because this is potentially an unsafe or even a life-threatening situation. So again, I'm talking about emotions, but I'm also, I want to bring it back to the brain, because this is how our our mindset, our emotions are communicating with our brain, and at the same time, this is how our brain is communicating with, our emotions and mindsets. So this, what I just explained about normalcy, or the child that experienced, either the results of violence or a better connection with what they saw. This is a perfect example of why people stay in abusive relationships. So I'm sure that we of all have had a friend or someone that we know that may have been in an abusive relationship, and we just don't understand why they can't get out. It doesn't make sense to us. But in fact, their reason for not getting out, I'm talking about the reasoning in their brain, it's actually valid. And it's because it's something that is predictable. So what I am posing here is for us. We can't tell anyone how to live, but what I'm posing here is for us, that we need to push through things in order to be different, or in order to find sanity, in order to break through difficult patterns, and things that we are experiencing in our lives. So, you know, we can learn new and healthy ways to live. We can learn new and healthy ways to express ourselves. We can learn to trust, um, and we can learn and believe that we can be heard, you know, in our lives, in relationships. So when we begin to, you know, create these new experiences, and push through, we're going to have different results. And these results will create new neural pathways, you know, in our brain. New brain connections are going to start to form. You know, new signals are going to be sent to our nervous system, you know. Um, and, you know, this is going to create wellness, or an overall wellness for our minds and, you know, for our bodies. So I do want to touch back a little more about mindset, because this is so important. Our mindset can also be called a belief system, you know. And our belief systems are basically, these are just a few points, are basically how we interact with the world, what is important to us, what we believe about ourselves, and what we believe about others. But you know, the truth is that these are totally made up systems through events. And I'll use an example again of a child, and I'm talking about between the ages of 3 to 5 years old. And another thing I do, you know, want to mention is that our brains are fully developed by the age. Not, no, it's not fully developed, but there's another term about 5 years old, about the memory. You know, the brain, the pathways, the neural pathways in our brains, are, you know, we are at our prime basically, mentally, until up until the age of 5. Of course, we continue to grow. I believe men, it's to the age of, I want to say 25, and I completely, my mind, I can think of the age for women, but I think it's lower. Because, you know, men, they need a little more time to grow. Just kidding. But I wanted to use an example of a child between the ages of 3 to 5 years old. So the parents, the parents are always busy. And the message, the made up message in this child's mind is that I am not important. So then the belief becomes, I expect others to hurt me. I am overlooked. I am not good enough. So the belief systems can also become an issue with identity, you know, because the conflict is that when we have these subconscious beliefs and we hear new and good information, we don't think it applies to us. And when I say subconscious, I am talking about it is deeply grounded in our bodies. We function from this belief system. And this is why a lot of us cannot break toxic cycles in our lives. We cannot break addictions in our lives. We just cannot get past this. We keep hitting this wall, whatever our goal is. It could be, I'm going to just use a simple goal. I want to eat healthier. I want to eat better. We just can't make those breakthroughs. We do great, and then we hit that wall again, and it becomes this vicious cycle. And then we get this depression, like, wow, I'm just can't get through it. You know, I just can't reach that goal. Or let's say it's fitness, or let's say it's losing weight. And I'm using these goals, and they're not superficial, but sometimes they can be. But these are real goals. But we need to find out what is the real goal. It may, although it may just be, oh, losing weight, but the goal really may be, I just want to feel better about myself. So a lot of us have also these defense mechanisms, and for, this would be someone, like a defense mechanism would be someone who always aims to keep things light, you know, like, "Oh, that doesn't apply to me," and again, I want us to be open-minded, because if this is something that you yourself have been doing it, just open your mind. But again, also to be compassionate and think of, maybe this could be someone in our lives, you know? So someone, a defense mechanism for not being able to dig deeper is, always keeping things light. Again, this doesn't apply to me. What happens is that this keeps them safe. This keeps us safe. It misdirects them from feeling what they're actually feeling. This could also look like someone that's constantly making joke references. This is could be a sign of someone avoiding getting into, a deeper level of their life, a deeper level of a conversation, a deeper level of healing, you know? Um, so, again, I'm just here to encourage everyone who, whether this is the first time you're hearing anything like this, or a lot of you have, come to these classes. I thank you guys so much, and if whether you're on this journey or not, there's so many parts. There's so many depths of this holistic journey, and this is one part of it, but it's a huge, part of it. So again, this is part of my journey, my personal journey of holistic wellness, which I didn't know it was holistic wellness. Uh, that occurred a little over 10 years ago, when I got sober. That's even the first part of it. And then a few months after, being sober, I was just extremely exhausted. I would literally wake up, and I was, what, 36 years old, and I'd wake up and I was experiencing extreme fatigue. So, I went to my doctor, and my doctor tells me, let's run some blood work. They ran some regular blood work, and I was deficient in vitamin D, B12 deficient. And my doctor basically told me I'm malnourished. And that's where my nutrition journey began. Seeking what foods should I eat, what's going to help increase my nutrition. At that time, I had to get B12 shots. I had to go on a weekly basis. And I was just getting started. I was touching the surface. Um, and now I'm here. The Lord has just lit this passion inside of me to to help others. My heart really, the more I learn, the more, like, my heart is just wants to explode and share this information, especially with you guys, the people that I love, the people that I care about. And we don't do this perfectly, but we just do it. We go. And I'm here to support you guys. I also want to share a few quotes, from some great authors, some books that I've read and I continue to read. Um, and one of them is from, I don't have the name of the author right now, but it's a great book called Sanity, Insanity, and Common Sense. And it was written by, they were psychiatrists. And one of the quotes says, ego exists because a human being can think and believe that he or she is incomplete, unworthy, unlovable, or incompetent. And that really, you know, really strikes my heart, because when we think of someone that is egotistical, we think of someone that they don't need any help. But this, again, this is someone that believes that he or she is incomplete, unworthy, unlovable, or incompetent. Um, and again, we are taught that we must defend these beliefs in order to protect ourselves. So again, this is our brain telling us that we need to defend these lies, in our minds. Again, that was another quote from that book. Now, the life, that I'm hoping that we can live, this is ultimately the result of living, you know, in our authentic self. And one of my favorite authors is Brene Brown. Many of you have heard of her. She really got a really rise to fame after a TED talk that she gave, and she's a shame researcher. I know I've never heard of that thing before, but this is a great book that I recently read. It's called I love the cover, Daring Greatly. It's sideways. But I'm going to read a quick quote of her book. Um, and this quote is actually is a quote of Theodore Roosevelt. It was a speech that he gave as citizens in a republic. And this was a speech that he gave in 1910. How beautiful. And this is a passage from his famous speech. And it says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The doer of deeds, sorry. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly." So I'll leave you guys with that quote. And I wrote a little bit, maybe I've already shared this, but again, I want to take this time out again to encourage each and every one of you to find a safe person, a safe place whom you can share with on a regular basis. This may be a recovery community. This could be someone in your church. It could be a pastor. It could be a professional counselor. I also want to encourage each and every one of us to become a good listener. Let's learn how to listen, because if we are on this journey of wellness, this holistic journey, we're gonna have to do more than just eat good and exercise. We need to take care of the needs of our hearts and our minds, and our souls, and to take care of each other. So I'm done here. I do want to let you guys know I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.